Well, hello there everyone. Welcome back. Today I want to talk about what do you call them? Dead lanes? Lanes without arrows? These things over here. Let me show you. See this 6-lane piece of road one way? It only has 3 lanes with arrows on it. And that's because there's only 3 destinations after this 6th lane that you can use. You can use either lane of the one way, or you can turn left down that street, which accounts for 3 lanes. Which would make the other 3 lanes sort of useless, seeing that they don't have a lane connected to them or a destination associated with them. And that's essentially how you create dead lanes. They pretty much dead end because they have nowhere to go. And that's why, for the most part, traffic won't use those lanes. Most people create these, and most people, we probably all create these phantom lanes, dead lanes, whatever you want. I'm going to call them dead lanes. I also call them emergency lanes. But for now, until we get to those areas, most people create these things by accident and don't even realize that they have been created. The ones that do know that they're created either ignore them because they don't do anything, or basically use Traffic Manager to take them out. In this case, I tried to do it on purpose. What was happening was, this is my industrial area, and it seems rather light for traffic compared to the traffic that's here. And there is, because most of them are taking the bypass. Because actually the bypass is faster than using this road. At the time, when I decided to do such a thing, the reason I did was because when it was a 2-lane, there were 2 lanes of traffic, of course, but this lane would get clogged whenever 2 buses stopped at this bus stop. Now this is a busy place, this bus stop, because it services anybody who wants to take transit. Yeah, it does. Anybody who wants to take transit out of Lotus stops here. Right, so it is, let's try speed 2. Yeah, it's a busy place, especially for the size of the district. There's about 5,000, but yeah, okay. Squirrel. Back to the topic, for crying out loud. The issue, like I said, if there is 2 buses sitting at this bus stop, in which there are times where there are 2 buses quite often stop at this bus stop, but they end up blocking the traffic in this lane. So I buffed it out I built it out, or upgraded it up to the 6th lane, and ended up having 3 lanes, but I got what I wanted, was having a buffer lane, a dead lane, along here. So that now, when 2 buses, will this happen? Like that. When 2 buses show up, this lane is still accessible. Not that anybody's using it, but it's still accessible. They're not going to block any lanes. Well, that was the first instance of using this kind of a intersection, or using a dead lane. There are other ways to use these things. I mainly use them for emergency lanes. And when I mean emergency lanes, I mean when you've got, one of those sirens going and a vehicle speeding down the street. Well, it's no good that it can speed down the street if it gets stuck behind traffic. So I use these dead lanes to create a path for it. So seeing that nobody will use the lane, right, gives it a perfect opportunity for emergency traffic to use the lane. Because the new dynamic that is inside all emergency vehicles now when their lights are flashing is they always look for a clear lane. I know this because I have built intersections with these dead lanes, right? And during a red light, an emergency vehicle will seek out the lane with no traffic on it, or at least try, right? And that's to help traffic or the emergency vehicle through the intersection, because all emergency vehicles will run through a red light. But what they won't do is run through a vehicle to do it, or drive through another vehicle to do it. Now you can't just put these things anywhere, because the only way to create these things is to essentially use less lanes ahead than what you're using now. And let me just give you a quick representation or an example of that over here. The best way, the easiest way to do it is, let's grab an ordinary road. No, let's grab a 4-lane road. Put you down. There. Now imagine these lanes here, these 2 lanes are full of traffic, right? And you have ambulance after ambulance after, or a few emergency vehicles with their lights flashing, just waiting to get through traffic, just to get through this intersection. Let's put an intersection over here. Well, how do you get them there? How do you get them in front of all this traffic? Well, you do something crazy like this. Now, let me get over here. There are only 2 destinations from here, right? There's the right-hand turn and the left-hand lane. There's nothing else. So if you were to do something crazy like this, upgrade this intersection to a 3-lane, all of a sudden there's a blank lane. Well, if all their left-hand turning traffic is going to come here, and all your right-hand traffic is going to come here, this ends up being a blank lane. So during a red light, your emergency vehicle, whatever it is, fire truck, police, or ambulance, will seek out this lane. During a green light, they really don't care because they think they're going to get through the intersection. But I do have a couple of clips that kind of clearly, well, I think they clearly show that just at the last node, at the last possible moment, emergency vehicles will recalculate the intersection. And if they find that it's a red light, as soon as they find out it's a red light, they calculate and try to find the clear lane. The other way I use this thing, this dead lane, is for industry, as a matter of fact. When we build our industry, sometimes we forget to not zone on main roads or collector roads. And when we do, we end up having heavy traffic on that road. And the fact that it's zoned, and I'm speaking about industry, let's just stick with industry. And when you put zones on that street, well then, whenever a truck comes back or makes a delivery to that industry, Well, it's going to do so by blocking a few lanes, isn't it? And if you have both sides of the road zoned, it doesn't matter if it's a 6-lane, 4-lane, 2-lane, they're going to block. They're going to block the outer lanes, right? The left-hand lane and the right-hand lane whenever a truck shows up at an industry. But if you're using a one-way road for your main road or something like that, let me show you what you can do with that. You can have a service lane, so to speak, on one side, on this side, where emergency vehicles and deliveries to this side of the road will not impede traffic at all. Or at least seemingly. I guess if there's a lot of delivery trucks to that area. Like, see that crosswalk? And the crosswalk back there where it changes from the 6-lane? How do I explain this? We have the emergency lane right there, right? But the one that's right there, the only traffic that will use that dead lane are any deliveries for that piece of 6-lane. After the crosswalk, right, where we use the 4-lane, the only trucks that will use that are, I guess, trucks that are still in the dead lane and wanting to use it for a quick way out. Of course, as an emergency lane. But any delivery to any one of these factories, that's the only other reason that they would use that lane. All other traffic would use these 3 lanes, right? So it eases traffic congestion because now you have a side of the street that operates normally when things are being delivered to it, but then you've got this other side in which they can do things like that. Nobody flinches. Or like this, multiple deliveries. Now he's off to his next destination. So as a one-way, I mean, if you did this for like a commercial street, then you could have commercials or commercial vehicles deliver a lot easier. So in that case, you kind of want your commercial down your main road. At least one down one side of it. Because that won't happen. Good to know. The lanes without arrows, I use them for merge lanes, I use them for buffer lanes, of course for an emergency lane. Big time for emergency lanes all throughout the city. It gets them around faster, I'll tell you that. In Cities Skylines, it is true that traffic will not yield to an emergency vehicle with its lights flashing. But as I've shown you, there's ways around that. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.